My goldfish are getting acne. They're getting these little white pimples in their head growth. Now, this isn't the official term for these little white pus pockets, but it's the best way I can describe them. Now, before I dive into this goldfish pimple subject, I want to give you guys a little context and background on what's been going on. A little over 3 months ago, I bought a house here in New Hampshire, and I packed up all my bags in Chicago, and I hit the road, and I drove up to my new house. But I left all my goldfish behind because I didn't have a place for them to be yet. I tasked my parents with taking care of them, and they did a very good job. They took care of them for 3 months. The reason I had to leave them for so long is because I wanted to finish this unfinished basement in my new house and prepare that as the fish room. So I had to get drywall boards all over the concrete, drywall boards in the ceiling, I had to do mudding, I had to do taping, and eventually I decided to hire it out because it was just a lot of work. So I had the rest of it painted, sanded, and floored. And then when it was finally ready, I got all the tanks set up, I got all the filters in there, I got it all cycled, and then it was ready for me to finally bring my goldfish. This is where things get a little complicated. I think I'm going to do a dedicated video later on how I shipped all my goldfish to myself. So first things first, I had to fly back to Chicago. I planned this and booked my tickets weeks ahead of time. The first day I landed in Chicago, my goal was to focus on getting everything prepared to ship the goldfish. So I went out and bought boxes, I went out and bought insulation, I went on my computer and I bought all the shipping labels necessary, I formed all the boxes, put all the insulation in there, and got all the bags ready, and I had everything set up so then the following day I could wake up, do maintenance, do some water changes, and then bag up all the goldfish and go to UPS and deliver them. I had them delivered to my new home using next day air saver, so they would arrive at the house the very next day. And the very next day, bright and early in the morning, I also had my return ticket home. So I flew home the very same day that my goldfish were flying home. We interrupt this program to let you know the Tubby Tobey plushies are now available for pre-order. And yes, I will be sitting down and personally signing hundreds of these plushies. Back to the video. This is where things get a little dark, a little sad. So the day I got home, the temperature was a lot hotter than I thought it would be. And the packages were delivered to my house a lot earlier than I thought it would be. And so I got to my house, I immediately go to the packages and I feel the top of them. They've been in the sun for a little bit and they're feeling kind of hot. So quickly I'm getting them all inside and I'm opening them up one by one, looking at every single bag. They're alive, they're alive, they're alive. And then I get to the second to last bag, all the other fish were still alive. And I see Giga Chad completely motionless and, he's gone, he's dead. And yeah, unfortunately, we did lose Giga Chad, so I buried him that same day. But, thank God all of the other goldfish were fine. Like, this could have been a lot worse. We could have had an entire box die. We could have had the entire box that was closest to the sun there just get baked and die. But luckily, we just lost one, and everyone else made it. And currently, right now, everyone else is still in my basement, and they seem to be adjusting pretty well. On the very first day after releasing them, they were a little stressed out, so they were kind of huddled up together. Some of them were near the surface, some of them were near the bottom. They weren't swimming around much. When you first get a goldfish, this kind of behavior is expected. I can't tell you how many times I've sold the goldfish to someone, or I've shipped the goldfish to someone, and then they start emailing me, and they're freaking out. They're like, Luke, my goldfish is at the bottom, my goldfish is at the top, he's not swimming very much, he's not swimming. And I'm like, guys, just give him a day, give him 2 days, let him relax, keep the lights low, don't feed them. I had one person, they emailed me, literally 15 times. And they're like, he's not swimming that much, he looks stressed, what should I do? I'm like, just back away from the tank and go to bed and wait till tomorrow. I'm sure you'll be a little better. But yeah, this is one of the difficulties with, live animal business is that a lot of people just don't understand things like this, and they get freaked out, and they put the blame on you, when in reality, they just need to give the fish a little time to adjust. Anyway, day 2, the goldfish were swimming around a lot more. They seem to be a lot more active, they seem to be adjusting, and this is great, because I was kind of worried, will these guys tolerate my water? This is well water, and, well water can be a lot different than city tap water they were used to before, but they seem to be swimming around doing just fine. But the one thing I noticed is that a lot of the goldfish were getting these little wen pimples, these little white pus pockets within their wen growth. And this is something that I've noticed when the temperature goes from warmer summer weather and it kind of quickly goes down to fall weather or winter weather. I notice these sometimes pop up in the goldfish. And I did some research on what are these wen pimples, what are these little pus pockets, and what I found online is that they actually took some of this stuff, they put it underneath a microscope, and it came back that it was a lot of white blood cells, white blood cells, and then also some I think it was dead bacteria or something like that, which is basically the same thing as pus in humans. Pus is mostly just like a bunch of white blood cells and then some other junk as well. And just like pimples in humans, these are not anything you have to worry about, like it's gonna kill your goldfish or it's life-threatening. For the most part, these pop up a little randomly here and there on the wen, and you don't have to pop them. Sometimes I do just, to see how much pus is in there. But if you see these pop up in your goldfish, you can honestly just leave them. It should not be an issue. So why are all these little wen pimples popping up in all my fish? Well, I think, one, they all were just shipped, and that's very stressful. The water quality is really bad in the bag during that process, and, it's kind of rough. It's not an ideal experience for a fish. And then they just got here. Now they're adjusting to a new kind of water with different parameters and different minerals. So they're a little stressed, and sometimes their immune system gets a little weakened during these stress times. And I'm assuming that's the reason why it's kind of easy for these little pimples to pop up. Also, something I'm being very careful of is the ammonia level in these tanks. As you guys know, before I left and got my fish, I tested the ammonia. I was adding ammonium chloride to these tanks, and it was very elevated. So I was kind of worried that maybe the nitrogen cycle is not quite complete in this tank, or in all these tanks. So I tested the ammonia again, and it looks to be basically around 0, which is very good. One of them was slightly elevated at maybe 0.25 ppm ammonia, but I have been adding Seachem Safe to help, temporarily detoxify any ammonia or nitrite, so the filters can convert that into nitrate. So I did this test on day 2, and on the following day, day 3, I gave these guys their very first feeding here in New Hampshire. One of, thousands of feedings to come. Now, why did I not feed them on day 1 when they first arrived, or the day after that on day 2? Well, when you first get a fish, it's going to be stressed, and sometimes the fish will be so stressed it won't even eat. So if I throw food in there and they just don't even eat it, that's going to rot. It's going to be awful for the water quality. And I've noticed that even when they do eat it, they tend to get a little more floaty. It seems like they can't even digest it that well, and sometimes I'll even find them floating upside down. So I honestly just like to not do anything. I release them into the tank, I let them be there for a couple days, and then I give them a small feeding, and then I slowly get into the grind of things of, 2, maybe 3 feedings a day. I also want to give you guys an update on the 2 new goldfish I recently got. One of them I named Millie Bobby Goldfish, and the other one I said that I was going to have my fan's name on a live video. And last night I have that live video, and it was absolutely insane. I did not think you guys were this invested in naming this goldfish, but basically we had these 2 names that were like people were bidding for. It was Jigglypuff and Cream Orange, and literally we had over $1,000 in donations to both of the names. And near the end, people were throwing donations left and right. But I said, okay, 5 more minutes, and we ended up having Jigglypuff win. So this goldfish is officially named Jigglypuff. There's still over $1,000 donated to name a goldfish Cream Orange. So I decided I gotta name that big fat unnamed female that I've had for a while. I gotta name her Cream Orange. So thank you so much to everyone that donated for that during that live video. My goal was to get enough so I could buy a new beard mic, and I did that during the stream. I bought a new beard mic that's a lot higher quality, so you guys were able to hear me much better in my vlogs. But yeah, we now have this girl named Jigglypuff, and I think a lot of people really wanted her to be named that, and I'm pretty happy with that name.